Hello gamers, Power Word Heal here, and today we're going to be covering the Shobek drama. Now, we normally don't cover drama on the channel, but I do think that it's good to make a distinction between quote-unquote drama and things that you just don't want to see happen in the scene, period, right? Things that kind of have a net negative impact on pretty much everyone involved because they promote behavior that just isn't great. And to give you like a bit of a distinction, I'm not the type of person that would go after people for kind of like what I would describe as like minor personal disputes. If you go back to 2019 Classic, okay, there were tons and tons and tons of like interpersonal little dramas between people that are ignited over basically nothing, right? Nothing was done in the game breaking any TOS or any rules or anything like that. Just like actual personal disputes of maybe somebody thought the other person played bad in a particular situation or something of that sort, right? And things just kind of spiral out of control. Or maybe somebody gets an item that they didn't think they deserved they won, but they did win it fairly. So there's tons of like drama like that goes all the way back to 2019, goes all the way back to private servers even before that. And that's the type of stuff I tend not to get into because that's all just like personal drama between people. But there's certain cases where people do things that I think are just kind of like harmful for the scene at large. And like I said earlier, you just don't want to see it happen in the community. And that's kind of like why I'm talking about this in particular. So I think the only two other drama incidents we had were Pirate Software, right? And then we did the Greek Warrior situation. Now, the Greek Warrior situation, obviously that involved gold buying. That's against TOS. He's promoting gold buying for other people. And then on top of that, he was, in my opinion, personally attacking the devs, which is kind of an insane thing to do. So I think that was reasonable to discuss. Then the Pirate Software situation, it would have been just a normal situation where there was kind of like a dispute over what happened in the raid. But I think the behavior afterwards in that situation was really what caused me to make a video about it to begin with. Like if it would have just been a bad DM run, maybe you would have did a video kind of analyzing what went wrong, but we wouldn't have kind of went in on talking about what actually happened on a person-to-person level, right? And this case it's sort of like a similar thing. It involves ninja looting. And I'm just going to add a little bit of context before. And if you just kind of want to get to the meat of it, I'll put a timestamp so you guys can get to the point where I really start talking about the issue itself. I'm also going to link the video down below. So you guys don't have to take my word for it. And whenever I cover one of these things, I'm going to try and do that because, I think it's important that people just see the quote-unquote evidence for themselves and they don't listen to somebody who, I have a very small platform, so I don't really think I'm particularly influential. But still, I don't want somebody just being like, oh, I believe this because Power Word Heal said it. It's like, no, just verify it yourself, right? It's absolutely fine. It doesn't take that long. So I'll link it down in the description. But first, I kind of want to talk about some of the things that I've seen surrounding this issue. So it is a ninja looting issue. And in my opinion, it's pretty black and white from what I've seen. I'll maybe add some caveats to that down the road. But I've seen a bunch of stuff pop up already where after people watch the initial video, I actually watched the video last night and I was reading through some of the comments. And a bunch of what I saw is just like crash out, overreaction, it's not that bad, people freaking out about an off-spec item, Paladin whining about a shield, etc. And it's just weird to me how people kind of do this. They'll see a situation where somebody seems to be clearly in the wrong, and then they actually kind of go after the person that is, complaining about the wrongdoing because they don't like the particular manner in which they discussed the situation, or they felt he was being too whiny, he was acting like a child, he was crashing out, and things of that nature. And, I understand some people are thinking, like, how can somebody get so pissed off or annoyed about in-game virtual items, especially like an off-spec item, an item that, is not even going to necessarily be used for the character a ton, right? It's not going to be used in his main spec. And I think I can kind of understand that perspective, right? But I want to kind of come at you with a little bit of a different perspective and provide what I think might be a little bit more context that might help you understand it better. So there's kind of two things at play. Sometimes And I'll use like a wand situation here for priests, right? Sometimes you have an item that isn't really a particularly good item for main spec, but can be really useful to help you do certain things, outside of your typical role in a raid. And wands for priests are a great example, right? Now, I certainly don't need, or I'd never like fight for a lot of the wands in the game personally. I wouldn't put them over other pieces of loot. However, it is nice to get a wand in certain cases, right? Because it can really help you farm dark runes, especially if this is my only character, if I didn't have my rogue, and I had to farm all my runes on a priest. I'd really like wand upgrades that come from raids. They're just nice, right? So when they're not soft reserved or anything like that, and everybody's rolling, I would at least like a fair shot at getting that item, because it actually does substantially help me outside of the raid, and it actually can help me prepare for raid, farming stuff like dark runes and things of that nature, just doing other quests that might be needed to do for raid, farming other things like essences if I want to do that. So these things do have tangible value, and in some cases they might actually end up having more value for you as a player than an item that actually you would take into raid. Because let's be honest, like even a great item, like let's say you replace your chest, you have the blue chest from Stratholme as a priest, and you replace it with a tier 3 chest. How much of an upgrade is that really going to be versus, you getting a really nice wand from maybe Blackwing Lair or even Nax or something like that, right? You're actually probably going to get a lot more use out of that wand outside of raid. Then you're going to feel the impact of that much more than you would feel the upgrade to a tier 3 chest in the raid. Okay, so in this case, it's a shield for a paladin, and it's not a holy shield, so it's a kind of like a tanking shield, and people are going to be like, well, why would a paladin want that, right? But there's a bunch of farms you can do as a paladin, and having a shield is just beneficial for those, right? Having a really nice shield, it just makes them easier, makes them more efficient. So this could be a thing where this person wants the shield. He doesn't maybe want it enough to soft reserve it himself, but he would at least like a chance to roll equally with other people if it's not going to be, hard reserved or soft reserved to somebody. Again, it's sort of like a situation where it could even be that, now people might ask, why not soft res it then, right? Well, again, he might not prioritize it that highly, but even if he does prioritize it highly, let's say I really want the wand from Kel'Thuzad, right? I think it would be awesome to have that. It's going to be the most impactful thing because I farm a bunch of dark runes. Now, I still don't want to take that away from a mage that needs it, okay? Because, I don't want to be greedy. Like, a mage is going to use that for their raid, and I'm just going to use it to farm. So, obviously, if you typically do loot in raid for who it's going to benefit in raid, right? So it probably deserves to go to a mage. Now, but that doesn't mean that if I don't soft reserve it and no mage needs it, that I don't mind the raid leader just giving it to his friend or something like that, over me. Like, I want a fair opportunity to roll on it. I think that's reasonable, guys, right? So that's kind of like the first thing, is that these items that don't seem that important can actually have more importance than people think. Then the next part tends to be the way that he's talking, right? Like, people are just like, oh, like, this is like a crazy crash out and things of that nature. But I think it's really just a culmination of frustration because he feels as if he is in a position of less power because Shobek is a streamer and has more of an audience, and he feels like Shobek has sway in this raid. Now, whether or not that's entirely true in this particular situation, like, I'm not connected or involved enough to know, so I can't really confirm or deny that, but I understand that sentiment in the feel, and I think the point is he wants to kind of invoke outrage a little bit, and I sort of get it, because it's BS that somebody could just do this and kind of get away with it. I feel like there's so many instances in WoW that we have of like bad behavior, specifically ninja looting and stuff like this, that I've seen in the past, kind of before I even started making videos on the channel, where people will, they'll go ninja loot and then basically nothing happens to them. Like, there's no reputational damage. That people are just like, oh, it's not a big deal. Nobody cares, just pixels. And I don't know, it's just kind of like the principle of the situation, right? It's like, why cheat in anything? Like, I don't care if you're cheating in a video game, if you're cheating at sports, if you're cheating at school. It's just like it's scummy, right? Like, why do you think there's kind of like like a smidge of like, why do you think you're special that you should get to cheat when everybody else has to play by the rules? And I think that most people that are reasonable can understand that. So the first two things that those I wanted to kind of get out of the way, because I know there's going to be a deluge of comments that just come in. It's like, oh, like who cares, right? And it's like, no, I don't think it's like something that, like, obviously in the scale of importance of things going on in the world, it doesn't care. But nobody's watching these videos with that scale on their mind, right? Where this is all in the context of the WoW scene. So again, like making those types of arguments is kind of lazy and just silly. So let's get into the actual issue now. So what happened? So they're running Blackwing Lair, and the Elementium Bulwark from Chromagus drops. And basically, it's a raid where you're going to roll 1 to 100 if it's your main spec, and you're going to roll 1 to 99 if it's off spec. Now, in case you're not sure what this means, I'll kind of break it down for you a little bit. So it's not that you're rolling one less because it's off spec. And the idea is that because you're rolling off spec, you only get -1 in your roll. The rolls are done that way to differentiate who is rolling for what. So the idea is that if somebody is rolling main spec, they will always win the item off of somebody who's rolling off spec. Like you could roll a 1 out of 100 if you're rolling main spec, but you will always beat somebody who's rolling a 99 in off spec, because the point is not that you're just gaining +1 by rolling main spec. The point is that to just differentiate the brackets of people rolling, so you can clearly see, okay, who needs this main spec, who needs this off spec. Just makes it easier for the raid lead and things of that nature to sort things out like this. So that's how the context of the rolls go. So people roll, and nobody in the raid that's a tank or a main spec tank, right, needs the shield. And a bunch of rolls start coming in. Some people roll 99, some people roll 100. Now, this is not uncommon because a lot of people don't really understand. They don't fully either understand or they don't pay attention to the system. So, or they don't pay attention to the convention, is I guess a better way to say it. Because off-spec items, again, they're not really a super big deal in a lot of these raids. So a lot of times people will see an item and, they see that it's an open roll. Hey, Leon, just doing a little video, but nice to see you, man. Yeah, so people will see these items come up and they will just roll out of 100, even if it's for off-spec. And the idea is that it's now the raid leader's job to kind of come in and be like, okay, this is not your main spec. You have to roll out of 99, or they're going to invalidate that 1 to 100 roll. So that's kind of how that goes, right? And in this case, it was that situation. A bunch of people rolled 100, a bunch of people rolled 99, but it seems, based off the video, that nobody that actually rolled 100, needed this for main spec. There was nobody that kind of came out and was like, oh yeah, like I'm rolling main spec, I need this. And the person who made the video that I'll link down below in the comments, they rolled like a 70 something, I think, on the off-spec roll, and they won the off-spec roll. They had the highest off-spec roll. And Shobek rolled, I forget exactly what he rolled, but he rolled something out of 100, and he rolled the highest main spec roll. Now the problem is Shobek's warrior was not tanking that run, okay? And not only was he not tanking that run, but there wouldn't seem to be any indication in any of the clips that he changed his loot specialization or priority. Now, you can't really technically do this in-game. It's not like in retail WoW, right, where you can kind of set your loot priority. But it's not unheard of in some of these runs for people to be like, well, I'll come and DPS this, but I want tank gear. Or I'll come and heal this, but I want shadow gear. And if you do that type of thing, it's usually, kind of told beforehand, and the raid leader knows. And if that was the case in this particular situation, I would expected to have heard something on the stream. So, for example, if he really did tell the raid leader beforehand that he was coming as DPS, but he wanted to be main spec tank loot priority, then what you'd expect to hear is somebody being like, well, or you'd expect him to say something of the nature like, oh, yeah, that's my shield, man, because I told the raid leader beforehand, you know, like, because he's getting all excited that it dropped. So you would think that he'd be kind of advocating for himself and what he told the raid leader early on. He'd kind of like let everybody know that this was his because he changed his loot spec. That'd be the kind of behavior that I would expect. We didn't see any of this. Nobody in the raid mentioned anything like that. And generally speaking, I think it's a pretty good idea when somebody does this for the raid lead to basically make it known to the people in the raid that somebody will be rolling as, you know, another spec. Okay? And I think this is especially important with tank items because tank items tend to be the kind of like least sought after items. Okay? So it's very common for items to either just be defaulted to tanks, or if the tanks don't need them, right, then they're kind of like open roll for people who, you know, to roll off spec on. So it's particularly important if there's a tanking situation where somebody is planning on rolling on tanking items that's not a tank, to make that known beforehand to kind of all the players involved in the raid. Doesn't seem like this was done here. And I think this is really the only thing that could possibly save Shobek, is if there was some type of agreement that we're unaware of. And that's the only reason why I'm like 99% sure he's guilty on this, and there's like the 1% or like the 0.1% where he may not be, because I don't technically know everything that happened leading up to this situation. So there's still some wiggle room if somebody produces a clip where he said, you know, I'm rolling on tank items in this raid or something like that. If that happened, if the raid leader confirmed it, then totally different story. But we don't see any evidence of that. The person who's making the complaint doesn't show any evidence of that. And since he doesn't seem to even advocate that he did this himself, I think it's pretty safe to assume that that probably didn't happen. So anyways, what happens is Shobek, since he has the highest main spec roll, and the raid leader looks and he sees that out of the highest 1 to 100 rolls, Shobek has the highest roll, he trades him the shield. Now, the problem here is that you could kind of just be like, well, it's an innocent mistake, right? You know, the raid leader just opened the trade, gave it to him, but you can see he's watching the rolls as they come in on the stream. And then not only that, but he notices that he got beat in the roll. But in his mind, he's like, oh, but that's the off-spec roll, right? So he's looking for a justification to actually, you know, argue that the item, you know, he can still get the item, basically, right? So he sees the rolls come out, he sees he gets beat, but then he realizes, like, oh, but I'm the highest main spec roll. And that's basically like what's said. The guy trades him the thing, and then he immediately equips the shield, right? And he immediately equips the shield knowing that it's most likely, again, unless he said something beforehand, which we don't have any context of, and it doesn't seem likely, he immediately equips the shield knowing that other people beat him in the roll, okay? And he rolled only the top off-spec roll. So you guys see what I'm saying here, right? Like, he knows that he didn't win the item overall because other people rolled higher than him. Like, he knows that. He can visually see his roll was defeated in the chat. So the only possible way he could justify taking the item is if, you know, he knows he's main spec in this raid. And it doesn't appear that he was. So it seems like he's just using this to get the item, right? And yeah, he just takes the item and he equips it instantly. And this is, you know, a lot of people are saying that this is like the smoking gun, equipping the item instantly. And it kind of is. It's like a supplementary thing, right, to make the aforementioned points inarguable at that point. But what it really is it's more just like that he's trying to make the problem go away. He's trying to make it seem like an accident, right? Like, oh, man, yeah, sorry, I just got excited. I equipped it. You know, nothing we can do now. It's already equipped. Oh, well, it's an off-spec item anyway. Not a big deal. And it just seems like really, really scummy behavior, right? Because, like I said, he can clearly see that he lost the roll unless he knows that he's rolling main spec, and he never really mentioned that at all during the process. You know, like, until it becomes apparent that that's the only way he can win the item, we don't hear anything about that. Like, he's like, oh, like, this is my shield, this is what I've wanted. You know, I'm rolling tank, guys. I'm rolling tank on this run. We even have people in his chat that you can see that say you should roll 99 on that, you know, instead of 100. And presumably, you know, maybe they didn't watch the whole run, but they're probably watching enough to know that, you know, he's not rolling tank spec. Now, in some cases, there will be situations where somebody will be allowed to roll on tank items and also DPS items. I think this probably shouldn't be the case in most cases, but, you know, I can't really, you know, I'm not like the arbiter of everybody's runs, and if people want to have that for a particular run, if that's the loot rules, then that's that. And I could sort of see that in a certain case. If you're maybe trying to be an off tank for a guild and they're running a pug for you or something like that, and they want you to get these tanking items, but they also want you to have a chance at DPS items. But again, anything like that needs to be very clearly stated up front in the raid. And it just doesn't seem like any of this happened. So in my opinion, yeah, until we get information from Shobek that he absolutely was main spec tank role for this, then I think it's pretty terrible. And I don't really buy the excuse that it was an accident. Like, the only thing that can save him at this point is if he really did have evidence of him saying he was going to be main spec tank before the run started, because the whole accident thing doesn't fly because he knows that other people beat his role. So, yeah, it's really simple. Bad behavior, in my opinion. Like, is it the end of the world? Like, you know, we're not trying to charge this guy with an actual real world crime and throw him in jail, but it doesn't have to be something like that, right? It's fine to call out bad behavior in the community, and all the people that are saying doesn't care, it doesn't matter. I think that's just a really bad attitude to have, right? Like, you wouldn't like it if somebody you know, scammed you or did something slimy to you. So why are you okay with it happening to somebody else? Just doesn't make sense. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys next time.